Welcome. Today we are going to be going over Notice and Note for Nonfiction. This is our part 2 video. So remember, in part 1, we introduced contrasts and contradictions and extreme or absolute language. So if you need to know more about those first 2 skills, you can go back and watch that first video. So today we are going to be introducing the next 2 in our sequence, which are quoted words and rhetorical devices. So the reason we are looking for anything whenever we are reading in order for us to highlight something and then to annotate is so that we are able to cite strong textual evidence. So when we are looking at quoted words and rhetorical devices, the kind of evidence we are looking for is most likely going to help us to answer one of 2 types of questions at the end of our reading. And those are, how does the author develop their ideas? And what evidence do they use to support their claim? So whenever I ask you guys these kind of questions or you see those, the idea behind the color coding is that you could go back and look for the green or the purple as most likely able to help you support your answer for those type of questions. So let's take a closer look at what we are going to be highlighting for quoted words. So when we're looking at quoted words, these are going to be probably the easiest things for us to find because the author has already marked them for us in the text by putting them in quotation marks. So when the author chooses to quote somebody, that's what we are going to be highlighting. So as we're highlighting this quotation, what we need to be thinking about is, why is it that the author thinks that this is an important person whose ideas need to be shared? What is it about their ideas that they think is important enough for us as an audience or readers to hear? Okay. What are they trying to do with this piece that they're using to quote? Are they supporting a position that they've already made, or are they trying to further an idea or give us new information? All of these things are going to help us to figure out what we're going to annotate. And when we go to annotate, what we should be doing is answering the question, how does this piece of evidence support the claim or develop an idea? What is it that I'm putting this in here for? And remember, anytime we highlight something, we have to have something to write about. If we're going to pull out a Post-it note and stick it on something, we have to be able to write something on that note to tell others who might come across it what it was that we were aiming at with that. All right. The next one is going to be rhetorical devices. And these are when we have any kind of device that you may have been introduced previously. At the English 4 level, which is the class that we're in, we're going to be seeing a lot of new things. You're going to be reviewing a lot of old things, and rhetorical devices really should be a review. If you're not strong with those, I will provide you guys with some support videos to review those as well. But we're going to start off by looking for kind of what I'm going to call the top 5 used rhetorical devices. And there's a lot of arguments that could be made for different ones that might be important, but these are the ones that I most often see in the pieces that you're asked to write about for various testing questions and things like that. So we're going to look for repetition, simile or metaphor, allusion, rhetorical questions, and then word plays, such as, let's go back there for a second, such as euphemisms, idioms, those kind of turns of phrases, and cliches. So if you're not sure what those things are, again, I will put together some review materials for you as well. So when you see these, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, what type of appeal is the author trying to make with these? Are they going for a logical appeal? Are they trying to appeal to my sense of what is right or what is wrong? Or the fact that they are trying to show me that they are a expert in the field on something? What is the goal here? All right. So once you've established whether this is a logical appeal to your understanding of what the difference between right and wrong is, or their knowledge on the topic, or an emotional appeal, then you need to start thinking about what do they want the reader to think or do? So think back to what you identified as the main idea of this piece, the claim that they're trying to present, or the central idea that they're trying to promote. And then you need to start asking yourself, does this work? Is this a valid argument? Is this something that they're using and is working to persuade the audience or to move the audience to act? Is this an effective appeal, basically? All right. And that's going to then help you to determine how the evidence supports the claim or develops the author's ideas. So you can say that this is being used in a certain way, but then you can also point out that it is or is not effective and explain that. Okay. So we're actually going to exit here for a second. And we're going to hop over to Common Lit, where we're going to take a look at what we should be doing as a review for when we are noticing things or highlighting and things like that. So the first one I've got highlighted here is an example of our contrast and contradiction. And I'm going to remind you that, remember, whenever we have anything that is highlighted, we have to have an annotation for it. So you'll see this one doesn't have the annotation. When it does, a box will be popped up up here to the left. So I'm going to go ahead and add my annotation here. And remember, the type of questions we would be answering with our pink or orange are going to be the central idea, or the claim they're presenting. What claim? What central idea does it present, or what claim are they making? Those are the kind of questions you're going to answer with our contrast and contradiction or our extreme language. Those are usually the ones that we're going to start with. All right. So here, this is from Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. And his first claim that he makes is that this is the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. And he very well could be right, hopefully, at least up to that point. Let's see. So the next thing I would be looking at highlighting, I'm going to be looking for examples of rhetorical devices. And I'm going to actually highlight this first one here as an example of an illusion. So you'll remember that rhetorical devices need to be highlighted in purple. So I'm going to choose purple here. So this rhetorical device is an example of an illusion. He says 80 years ago. And when he's wording it this way, what he's doing is he's throwing back to the Emancipation Proclamation, which was signed by anybody? That's right. It was signed by Abraham Lincoln after he gave a speech in which he started off with 7 years ago. So when he says 50 years ago, what he's doing is he's trying to allude to that great speech that's often quoted from Abraham Lincoln in the freeing of the slaves. And if you know anything about the I Have a Dream speech, you know that this speech was given in support of civil rights. So clearly there's a tie in there. So we can then go ahead and add an annotation here in which we would be explaining how this allusion is used to support the claim that this is the greatest demonstration for freedom in our history. So we would have to do one thing, which is identify it as an illusion. So I would say this illusion is used to support the claim that, help if I spell claim right. By, and then I have to do my by here. So I'm going to say that this is what the illusion is doing. What is it doing? Oh, by, by. By, what is it? All right, referencing or making the allusion reference to it am I spelling this? A second. All right, so President Lincoln's speech. Oops. Whoa, what happened there? Space bar, we went flying. Lincoln's right, so it's making reference to his speech at the end of the Civil War. So in this notation, I'm explaining what type of rhetorical device is being used and what the intended effect is of that device. So when I get to the end, if I have a question that asks me something like to identify whether or not the argument is well supported, I can then come back and find this piece of evidence now, put in my quotation mark, and then use this as my explanation. So if I'm doing a tiers style paragraph, I have my topic sentence, I have to introduce the evidence for the I, and my evidence is going to be what is highlighted, and then I have to respond to that evidence. And what I have written down here is my response to this evidence. I am saying this is a piece of evidence that shows that an allusion is used in this piece of writing to support the claim that this is a great demonstration for civil rights. And it's making an allusion to a previous speech by a previously well-known activist, if you will, that started kind of the ball rolling in many ways or many views of our history. So that is the primary goal here. So remember, our other one is going to be quoted words. So you're not always going to find necessarily quoted words here, but we could put in here, I'm going to go ahead and highlight here our quoted words in green. So he talks about this, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So I'm going to ask you if you know where that comes from. Anybody? No? Maybe? It's from the Declaration of Independence. He actually puts it up here that this is part of that, you know, we hold these truths to be self-evident. So he's quoting this document. Why is he quoting that document? So that's what you're going to be putting into your notation here, is that he is quoting the Declaration of Independence in an effort to give this more of an authority. He's saying this is not a question of should we or shouldn't we. It's a question of why haven't we been doing this the right way? If we said this when we founded this nation, we have to follow it. All right. So let us review what we were supposed to have learned today. So remember that when we talk about contrast and contradiction, or extreme or absolute language, which are the first two skills that we were introduced into in our first video going over notice and note for nonfiction strategies, we are looking to cite strong textual evidence that will help us to answer questions like, what is the author's purpose in writing? That pie, are they trying to persuade, inform, or entertain? When we highlight, remember, we need to make sure we are annotating that. And we could also be answering the question, what is the central idea or the claim? So again, when we're highlighting these, that's the kind of evidence we are looking for. With our new ones, we are looking for the quoted words and rhetorical devices. But no matter what, we need to remember to follow the color coding, because color coding them helps us to remember exactly what kind of answers they are, so that we can go back and know what kind of strong textual evidence that we are going to be using to present. And we also have to remember that anytime we put anything in highlight, we have to explain what the evidence shows. What is the evidence there to do? That's what we're putting in our annotations. So if you have any questions or you need more support with these materials, make sure you reach out to your teacher. or use the materials that are posted for you in Google Classroom. So have a great day and make great choices.